ai microfonul oprit. Doamne, cât de prost sunt. O să rândez. Ia dărâmă un bloc, cade tot. A, nu cad, că e de asta cu piatră. Ce abominație de copac e ăsta? Aici. Pare să mai aud. Nu înțeleg de ce se vede albastru ăsta. Eu, mă. Iar s-a dat update? Downloading content. Bă, vere. Oi, mă. They see me rolling.
Deci am o grămadă de motocicliști. O să trească să intrăm la ceva benzinărie, că dacă intrăm pe autostradă s-ar putea să rămânem fără gaz.
Each one of these dirt bikes is a 250. But let me share a little secret with you. They could not be more different. One is super tame and beginner friendly. One will rip your arms off, and one is designed to be an absolute menace on the motocross track. But if these bikes have the same sized engine, why are they all completely different? Well, that's because engine size doesn't actually mean shit. Today, I'm going to reveal what really makes a dirt bike fast, powerful, or beginner friendly. First, let's talk a little bit about why people get this wrong. There are a lot of different sizes and types of dirt bikes out there. Far too many for the average beginner rider to wrap their head around. They're given names like the YZ125 two-stroke, CRF 250F, 300XC two-stroke, or the YZ450F. Now, just by looking at those, it would be natural to assume that the bigger the number, the more powerful the bike. Most of the time, that is the case. But if we go back to the list of bikes I just talked about, there's actually a couple that are out of place. If we're just measuring by approximate horsepower, that list would actually be as follows. The CRF 250F with 20 horsepower, the YZ125 two-stroke with 33 horsepower, the YZ450F with 55 horsepower, and the 300XC two-stroke with 57 horsepower. Did you catch that? The CRF 250F is actually less powerful than the YZ125. And check out that 300 two-stroke with more horsepower than the 450. What's going on here? The numbers found in the names of these dirt bikes are referring to the engine's displacement. Displacement is just the physical volume inside the engine's cylinder. It doesn't actually tell you the full story about how the engine makes power, how it rides, or how beginner friendly it is. So, let's dive a little deeper on some of the factors that actually do contribute to those characteristics. To illustrate this, let's forget about all those other bikes for now and just talk about a single displacement, the 250cc dirt bike. Now, before we get into this comparison, if you're enjoying this style of video, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to hit 10,000 subscribers. It's free and it really helps me out. So hit that button below and join the Supermoto crew today. I think when most people imagine a 250cc dirt bike, they're probably picturing something designed for an adult that's relatively powerful, but not the most powerful. It is half the displacement of a 450 after all. The truth of it is, 250s come in all shapes and sizes. First, you have the trail 250s, bikes like the Honda CRF 250F, which I've made countless videos about on this channel. These bikes are typically air-cooled four-strokes with a mild tune. They have a pretty basic suspension tailored to casual beginner riding, and they're built for comfort and reliability. As we saw before, these bikes make around 20 horsepower. That's not even close to the amount of power cranked out by a four-stroke 250 motocross bike, like the Yamaha YZ250F, for example. These are the types of bikes you'll see on TV in the 250 class when you're watching pro motocross or supercross races. They're liquid cooled and run a high compression. They have advanced suspension components and a very aggressive, snappy power delivery, and they produce around 37 to 39 horsepower. There's also the 250 two-strokes. These are interesting because they actually produce even more horsepower, almost maybe comparable to what a 450 four-stroke motocross bike is capable of. They deliver quick, snappy power, and they're also very light. Manufacturers make them in a more motocross style of bike, built for fast-paced, wide-open riding, and they also make them more catered to off-road riding with low-end grunt, suitable for very challenging technical terrain. 250 two-strokes are usually able to produce around 45 horsepower. Alright, so if all of these 250s have the same engine displacement, why don't they produce a similar amount of power? To understand that, we need to learn what really goes behind creating horsepower in an engine. Let's compare four-stroke trail bike 250s with four-stroke motocross 250s. First of all, we have compression. This is how much the engine compresses the air-fuel mixture in the cylinder before it ignites. Higher compression equals more explosive power. A trail bike 250 would have a lower compression ratio, maybe 9.6 to 1, and a motocross 250F would have a higher compression ratio, maybe 13.5 to 1. The motocross bike's explosions are bigger, which creates more force and therefore more horsepower. Next, we have the RPM range. This is basically how fast the engine spins, measured in rotations per minute. The trail bike tops out at about 9,000 RPMs, where the motocross bike revs out to 13,000 or more. The motocross bike's engine can fire more times per minute, so even if each explosion were equal in size, which they're not, the MX bike still makes more power just by spinning faster. Since these engines are exploding fuel and their components are spinning at thousands of rotations per minute, they naturally end up creating a lot of heat. Each bike has a cooling system to keep those engines at optimal operating temps. The trail bike is air-cooled, meaning air just passes over the engine's surface. That's why you usually see fins on the cylinder head. They're not just for looks, they actually increase the surface area so more heat can transfer away from the metal into the air. Air cooling is simple and very reliable, but it can't handle super high engine heat, which limits the amount of power the trail bike's engine can make safely. The motocross bike, on the other hand, uses a liquid cooling system. This is similar to what you'd find on a car. It uses radiators and a water pump to circulate liquid coolant through the engine, which picks up the heat it produces. That coolant is then pumped back to the radiators. As you're riding, air flows through the radiators and cools the liquid back down before it's recirculated through the engine to do it all over again. Because water can absorb and carry away a lot more heat than air can, liquid cooling is much more efficient than air cooling. This allows the liquid-cooled motocross bike to safely run faster and hotter than the air-cooled trail bike without overheating. Since these engines need to breathe in air and fuel and push out exhaust, they rely on camshafts to open and close the valves at the right time. The trail bike uses a single overhead camshaft, or SOHC. One cam controls both the intake and exhaust valves. It's a simple, durable design with mild timing, meaning the valves don't open super far or stay open very long. But that's perfect for smooth low-end power and long engine life. Great for trail riding.
Everyone on the Okay, this is weird, but if you're a 90s kid like me who loves sports cars, you've probably also noticed this. Cars from 20 or even 30 years ago just feel fast and fun to drive, even more so when you compare them to modern cars. But why is that? Shouldn't it be the other way around? I mean, technology has only gotten better, and today's cars are more powerful than ever, right? So at first I thought that's just nostalgia messing with my head. Boy, how wrong I was, because the more I looked into it, the more I realized that there's so much more to it, that there's actually something off when it comes to modern cars. So down the rabbit hole I went, and what I came out with is what I call the 5 laws of speed. Let me tell you, if you ever have the urge to make your car feel faster and more fun to drive, look no further than this list. So kick back, relax, and let's go into Car Geek mode, where I will list the 5 laws of speed which make cars feel fast. First, let me ask you a question. Ever driven a K20 swapped EK9 Civic? If not, here's a taste for you. You drop a gear, rev it out, and suddenly it feels like you're about to hit light speed, only to look down and realize you're doing, well, something right around the legal speed limit on the Kanjo loop. The point being, noise is one of the most obvious ways a car communicates speed. But make no mistake, I'm not just talking about engine noise or a straight-piped exhaust. Back in the day, cars were raw. Road noise, engine noise, wind noise, it was all there. But today's cars, they're wrapped in layers of insulation, engineered to be whisper quiet. And when you don't hear the speed, you just don't feel the speed. Guess what though? I'm not the only one who came to this conclusion. Car manufacturers know that this is a problem. They know that this makes their new cars boring to drive. That's why they go to great lengths to reintroduce the missing engine sound into the cabin artificially. Here's what that sounds like. Yeah, that's a Mustang, by the way. But Ford isn't the only brand doing that, though. Far from it. BMW M5, check. GR Yaris, check. Golf GTI, check. BMW M2, check. Nissan, Lexus, Hyundai, Kia. As you can tell, the list is getting pretty long at this point, but I just can't wrap my head around it. Why would anyone want their car to sound like a mini Lambo from the inside when in reality, it sounds like a vacuum cleaner on the outside? It just feels wrong and completely kills otherwise great cars for me. Am I the only one? Drop me a comment if you feel the same way. But like I said, sound is just one piece of the puzzle. And luckily for us, the next thing that gives us a sense of speed in a car can't be faked. At least I wouldn't know how. I bet this FD feels fast as hell when you're at the wheel, and I can tell you exactly why. Picture this. You're sitting in a lifted F-250 doing 50 miles per hour. Feels like nothing, right? Now hop in a go-kart and hit the exact same 50 miles per hour. Suddenly you feel like you're breaking the freaking sound barrier. It just feels ridiculously fast. That's because your mind's playing tricks on you. When you're sitting high up in a F-250, the only reference points for your vision are in the distance, and they're slowly moving towards you. Not exactly a sensation of speed, right? Let's take it even further. Imagine sitting on a plane and looking down. When you're high up, the ground doesn't seem to move at all, even though you're moving at completely bonkers speeds of close to 600 miles per hour. A go-kart is the exact opposite of that experience. You're not moving fast at all, but instead, you're as close to the ground beneath you as you can be. So as a general rule, the closer you are to the road, the more everything rushes past you. Your brain picks up on that motion in your peripheral vision.
Well, Logitech のチューン Iar ce mama că dărâm casa. Dar de unde e că e volan? Care face zgomot, nu eu. Bun. Mă, ce? Vezi, prost? Ce mișto e? Băgat de-astea noi. Căutam telefonul, dar telefonul era sub tastatură. Bravo, Florin. Ești bun rău de tot. N-am servul. Da. Dăm și noi top spin la CBR. nu fac nimic la volan. Eu nu-l mișc. Face singur. Gata, s-a oprit. Apa, lasă-mi că nu